There's no one quite like Emily. No, seriously. There is no one like Emily. She is the one and only remaining Great Northern Railway Sterling single, and she has had a character arc like no one else. While working on season 6 of Thomas and Friends, a crew member somehow found enough spare time to build a model of the Sterling single at home and brought it to work, leading to the creation and introduction of Emily. So I have returned with another sleep deprivation, overcaffeination, late night Fortnite Adderall mania fueled character analysis video essay created because I don't want to spend 3 hours writing an essay about OCD for a class I'm paying $5,000 to attend. So instead, I spent about 97 hours watching every single episode with an Emily appearance, writing this script, and editing this video to avoid doing it. That being said, welcome to Everything Excellent Emily, the Elegant Emerald Engine. If you want to get a fat rip of dopamine by committing a cardinal sin, click on the Forbidden tab on the Thomas Wiki. It says this: Emily is an Emerald Tender Engine. She is also the island's official safety engine and was Sir Topham Hatt's private engine before she was replaced by Winston. Is this true? I've never thought about Emily possibly being Sir Topham's private engine, but as I make this video, I keep finding more and more evidence to support it, but I'd have to do a separate video for that. And if you'd like to ensure you see that video, subscribe. Please, not enough people discuss Emily in the same depth as the other main characters. One disclaimer before we get deeper into the video. Many Thomas creators analyze characters separately based on the era of the show. In this instance, I am choosing not to do that. This video examines everything Emily, as a whole, from her introduction to her last appearance. I am analyzing these differences in characterization through the show and examining things that happen throughout the series that could potentially explain personality and behavioral changes. Did I mention I'm a psychology major? We're going deep here. I took on a lot of debt for this psych degree, and I plan to use it the way the world needs me to the most. Super long video essays doing full psychological analyses of fictional characters. In my years of watching Thomas and Friends, I have realized that Emily is a realistic example of a woman working in a male-dominated industry. She knows how to banter with the boys and throw their attitude back at them. But there is not a single moment in the entire series that suggests that she is incapable of doing something because she's a girl. They never mention gender in the show, but they do acknowledge it by using different pronouns. When Emily is told that she is incapable, it is always by Gordon. And the reason is that she's not Gordon, because no one could ever be as good as Gordon. To answer the burning question that those of you who saw my Thomas video have, Emily's fatal flaw is believing she is always right. Many engines have had episodes where they are afraid of making a mistake or of being wrong. Emily has not. Emily is confident in her decisions and believes that she won't make a mistake. She doesn't try to hide when she does make one. Emily will own up, give a proper apology, and take accountability for her actions. These are great lessons for children. So let's run through Emily's noteworthy appearances. In her first appearance, Season 7's Emily's new coaches, Thomas is enamored by her when he first sees her. But that goes out the window when he realizes that she took Annie and Clarabelle out to get to know the line. Then Sir Topham tells Thomas to go pick up new coaches at the docks, and Thomas thinks that he replaced Annie and Clarabelle without saying anything to him first. Or maybe that Sir Topham has gifted Annie and Clarabelle to Emily, because that wouldn't be the first time he had done that with them.
I'm ready for my coaches.
We're Thomas's coaches now, James.
That's right.
Bruh.
Edward and Percy take out Thomas's rage on Emily, which upsets her. Annie and Clarabelle were pissed off because of Emily's driver, but honestly, Annie and Clarabelle are not express coaches, and Emily is an express engine. After learning from Oliver that they were Thomas's coaches, Emily immediately tries to find Thomas to apologize to him. She searches for a long time, and she is eventually stopped at a signal box because Oliver has broken down across the points. After Emily bravely pushes Oliver across the line and saves him from getting T-boned by Thomas, there's a tiny difference in dialogue between the US and UK dubs. The UK dub has silence, but in the US dub we have this.
Thanks. We did it.
She doesn't even say you're welcome. She says we did it, even though her sole effort saved Oliver and Thomas. She didn't demand that anyone recognize her intent or heroism. She didn't even agree that she was brave when Sir Topham congratulated her at the end. She simply says thank you, apologizes to Thomas for taking his coaches, and is forgiven.
Just hear you reading the story.
You hear me reading my story?
Yeah.
Yeah?
What just happened?
What just happened is Mom's reading her story. But I must point out, at some point, after every single steam engine that Emily encountered being angry and unkind to her, who happened to all be male, the thought of they don't like me because I'm a girl must have gone through her head. I was 10 years old when this episode came out and the first time I watched it, and I thought that they didn't like Emily because she was a girl. In What's the Matter with Henry, Emily is shown to be the only engine that believes Henry isn't feeling well and sees that he is leaking water, so she talks to Sir Topham Hatt. At first, it seemed a little odd that she decided to go to Sir Topham instead of saying something to Henry, but I think she doesn't want to be the person who asks the obviously disabled guy what's wrong with him. Henry is very thankful for her help, and this episode solidifies their friendship. Emily checks in with him at the end after he's been repaired.
Well, they mended my tubes, but they didn't even look at my brakes, my gauges, my squeaky wheels.
God, Henry sounds like me.
It may be sunny now, matey, but there be a storm coming.
Her next appearance is in Salty's stormy tale. Thomas and Percy don't realize they are hurting Salty's feelings by copying how he speaks, and Emily tells them off for it. I think the episode is a bit more impactful in the UK dub, as she is portrayed with her Scottish accent.
It's no nice to copy the way others speak.
In Bulgy Rides Again, Emily suggests Bulgy help the farmer by delivering vegetables, which he doesn't take seriously. But can you blame the guy? After being disused in a field as a dirty henhouse for years, he just wanted to return to the road. He is much more receptive to the idea at the end of the episode after the chickens egged all of his passengers. It was a small appearance, but Emily was trying to be helpful, and it was a creative idea that ended up working out in the end. And this wraps up everything important about her for Season 7. Before diving into Season 8, I want to discuss Emily's personality change throughout the series. There is obviously a difference between Season 7 and the hit-era characterization of Emily. A lot of people see it as her being out of character, but it's not. It's character development. It appears that she realized that she made a good impression in her short time on the island in Season 7, and Emily let it get to her head. She is always trying to take charge of situations, not realizing how much it takes to be right every single time. At this point, I want to point out that the difference in voice acting between the two English dubs affects the audience's perception of her character. Some of Emily's lines were delivered with different tones, intensity, and emotional motivation. And the best example I can think of is the next one. Season 8's episode, Thomas, Emily, and the Snowplow. In this episode, Emily wants to help Thomas by telling him what he is doing wrong so he can do it better. That's pretty nice of her. She tells Thomas to slow down, and then she tells him not to talk to the children because he would be late. Thomas protests that he is never late, and Emily says,
There's always a first time.
which offends Thomas way more than it should.
I am never going to listen to Emily ever again, said Thomas.
When Emily tells Thomas to get his snowplow fitted, each dub's delivery is completely different.
Thomas, she called, you must go and get your snowplow fitted. You must go and get your snowplow fitted.
Compare that to this.
You must go and get your snowplow fitted. Oh, Thomas.
Upon this last rewatch, I realized that Sir Topham Hatt didn't tell Emily to find Thomas until after she said he had already left. She didn't start that day with the goal of bossing him around. She was worried about him. It's icy. It's snowy. It's dangerous on the rails. But bossing Thomas around is just a perk of always being right. Also, does Emily know about Thomas's aversion to extreme weather safety precautions? Because if so, the US dub is 100 times funnier because she sounds like she is mocking him for having to wear it.
I shan't have to wear it. I shan't have to wear it.
Thomas, you must go and get your snowplow fitted.
At the end of the episode, after Emily gets to tell Thomas I told you so because he didn't listen to her, she gives him a not apology because she doesn't believe that she did anything wrong.
I am sorry. Sorry you didn't listen to me.
We celebrate Emily being right, and no one has ever seen her as condescending or rude in this episode at all. And Thomas gets in trouble with Sir Topham Hatt. As he should. Seeing Thomas in trouble upsets Emily, who admits that she forgot to tell Thomas she was delivering a direct order. She didn't realize Thomas thought she was just being bossy, and reflected on the fact that she didn't communicate important information. Her next lead is Emily's new route. Route? Route. I'm American, so we say route, but Emily's new route sounds weird. Her next lead is Emily's new route. Sir Topham visits her at Knapford in the middle of the day, informs her that he's opening some new lines for the season, and assigns her the flour mill special. Emily sees James at the water tower, and he tells her that she is lucky to have the flour mill special, and tells her about the Blacklock run. Apparently, there were boulders that bash her buffers, and the Blacklock monster. After her issues with the flour trucks cause her to be late, Sir Topham tells her that if it's done wrong again the next day, she will do the Blacklock run instead of James. When Emily delivers the trucks the next day, they trick her into delivering only half the load. Emily is stressed out about having to do the Blacklock run, and embarrassed that she messed this up. When she returns to the flour mill, the combination of anxiety about the Blacklock monster and the trucks teasing her about being late is too much. It gets to her head, so she snaps and violently attempts to drown the remaining trucks in the pond, and arrives back at Knapford covered in flour, and even more stressed out. So she is assigned to the Blacklock run.
I guess dealing with a monster is an appropriate punishment for attempted murder.
Emily is so worried about the monster in the lake that she struggles to enjoy the day. This is a small detail, but I'm glad that they included it. Stress and anxious feelings can make it really difficult to enjoy your life.
I bet it won't last, she said to herself.
Emily is terrified after the landslide at the lakeside, but remembering her passengers helps her be brave and wait for help. She is delighted when she discovers that the monster is actually a family of freshwater seals, which wouldn't actually be there. The only exclusively freshwater seals in the world live in Lake Baikal in Siberia. Anyway, Emily learns to love the Black Lock run. She never teases James for believing in the monster, and I can't find a point where she ever brings it back up to him. But I think this incident is why Emily never takes James seriously, as this was her first impression of him. This episode is one of the few times that she is seen to believe in the possibility of the supernatural or monsters. It is unsurprising that the monster she believes in is a lake monster.
Don't worry, Emily. The monster will leave you alone, as long as your crew has Tree Fitty.
I ain't giving you no Tree Fitty, you goddamn Loch Ness monster! Get your own goddamn money!
In Spick and Span, Emily is pompous about herself and her appearance, like James and Gordon. This is not a trait that is consistent, but it does pop up from time to time throughout the series. Emily is proud of her big wheels and paintwork, and a few times she's introduced as grand and gleaming, like James. I can imagine James saying this line.
There's no need for you to get clean. I'm going to be the grandest engine there.
Which pisses off Thomas pretty good.
In the episode As Good as Gordon, Emily is determined to be as fast and as reliable as Gordon when pulling the express for him. She is confident in doing the job well. Also, James's shit-eating grin as she rolls out of Tidmouth Sheds is pretty funny. He's pulled the express before, and he doesn't think anyone could do it as well as Gordon, not even himself. When she meets James at the water tower, she is rude to him and ends up doing the same thing James does a couple of episodes later in the same season, which is skipping out on water because she is impatient and trying to prove a point.
Also, she left behind the brake coach.
After she is rude to everyone she meets and so impatient that she causes many people to miss the express, she runs out of water and is hauled to the docks by James.
I like that James is doing the rescuing rather than getting rescued.
He is so often on the other side, and actually, so is Emily. At the end of the episode, Emily volunteers for the slow goods train to practice learning patience from her mistakes with the express that day. Emily volunteered for her own punishment and rehabilitation to make up for her mistake. In Emily's adventure, she is tasked with delivering timber to Farmer McColl's after the big storm so he can fix his barn. She is impatient with Trevor, then the workmen, and then she blows her whistle at everyone because she has decided that they aren't working hard enough. Then Emily meets her match. She was rude to Elizabeth. Big mistake. Emily put her job ahead of others, not caring that everyone else's top priority was getting the railway cleared and running smoothly. Sometimes, like James, it takes a verbal lashing for Emily to realize that she is wrong. In this instance, being called a big bossy boiler by Thomas of all engines is what it took for her to apologize to Elizabeth and be patient. As we progress through the series, though, Emily comes to the conclusion that she is wrong on her own more and more frequently. Some people say that Emily is rude in this episode for no reason, but I disagree. I think her motivation for being a jerk was because she was worried about the calves. She did mention them to Elizabeth, and many people respond to stress by being irritable or flat out rude. I'm not saying that her behavior is justified. Remember, the purpose of this video is explanation and observation. Season 8's Halloween episode shows one of the few times that Emily falls victim to the belief in the supernatural. She is paired with Thomas to go to the smelters and collect iron. Percy warns them to watch out for ghosts. Thomas says ghosts aren't real. Emily says they are silly make-believe. They enjoy feeling brave and superior to their peers. Or Percy, I guess. But Ari and Bert can get to anyone with their schemes. Plus, this image is cursed as fuck. I know she's looking up, but you can't see her pupils unless you really look for them. And I love the delivery of this line.
The ghost! It's got me!
Emily, Thomas, Ari, and Bert all feel silly after they run all the way to Tidmouth. And I like that the episode shows Emily's snooty side in a way that doesn't make her look like a complete jackass. In the special Calling All Engines, in the Busy song, we see our first example of Emily with a train of flowers, and she seems pretty happy about it. So after Thomas pulls his shit with Ari and Bert and gives Diesel a truck of bananas instead of building supplies, causing all of the Diesels not to finish their jobs of upgrading Tidmouth Sheds, finishing the airport, and the suspension bridge being painted, everyone in Tidmouth Sheds is forced to sleep elsewhere for a few nights. Emily has to share her shed at Knapford with Thomas. Also, there is a huge storm that needs to be cleaned up before they can repair the sheds.
You just know that Emily knows this is all Thomas's fault.
Steam engines and diesel engines are not speaking to each other because of Thomas. Diesel is so angry about Thomas playing a trick on him and his friends that he assaults him.
And he rolled away.
Which escalates their feud into the biggest conflict the island has ever seen.
Oh shit, here we go! It's on! Race war! Race war! Race war! Race war's on, everybody! It's going down! Shit is going down! Race war's over, everybody! White's won again!
I am so going to hell for that.
Everyone causes confusion and delay, and Sir Topham scolds them and tells them that the airport will not open and that it's their fault. That night, several engines have nightmares about their futures, and Thomas has his prophetic vision of Lady. The next day, he goes out to find Mavis to help him spread Lady's good word. Emily is happy to be alone that night. When Thomas didn't come back, she assumed he was with Percy. Then she realizes that she missed the cheeky little bastard and feels lonely. At the end of the movie, she realizes that she will be sleeping alone again at Knapford when all the steam engines come to Tidmouth to admire their new shed. Then Percy sees there's an extra berth and announces it, and Sir Topham informs everyone that it is for Emily. And that's about everything for Season 8. We've learned a lot about Emily by this point, and she's starting to settle into her role on the railway and into the main cast. In Season 9's Thomas's Milkshake Muddle, Emily is chosen to take the children to the summer party, and when she meets Thomas at the junction, she pulls a James and tells him that if he weren't a slow coach, he would have her job. Then she offers to race him to the signal, and he tries to race her, which leads to his milk being shaken into butter. Around this point in the series, Emily and, let's be honest, most of the other characters start to be used more and more frequently as motivation for Thomas's bad behavior. In Molly's special, Emily's appearance is pointless. Apparently she laughs at Molly for taking empty trucks, but honestly, it doesn't add or subtract from the episode. Emily could have been anyone, but Emily does say that Molly looks magnificent with all the lights on her cars when she sees her. That's pretty nice. In the episode Respect for Gordon, Gordon's firebox keeps everyone awake at night, and Percy teases him for it. The next morning, Percy teases him again, and I notice that Emily is still asleep here. But Emily doesn't want to miss out on the fun of poking at Gordon's insecurities, so she teases Gordon at Knapford Station and embarrasses him in front of Diesel. Wait, is this the first time she interacts with Diesel? No, Diesel hears her, harasses Gordon, then leaves, so she doesn't actually interact with him. They're just on screen at the same time. Emily is also the first to say that she isn't going to give Gordon the toots that he demanded, and she is the first to see him pulling the express after the demand was made. Gordon was so pissed about not receiving his toots that he ignored the signal and had a crash of absolutely epic proportions. After Gordon's accident, she and Henry have to pull the express while he is being repaired. They both admit that Gordon has a difficult job and apologize to him in the end for teasing him after they realize how hard it is to do his job consistently. And it's a nice feel-good ending for everyone, and everyone apologizes to each other. And I like that Emily wasn't being just rude or non-compliant. Gordon had unreasonable demands that she wasn't going to cave to. She is pretty horrible to Neville after being at the twisted end of the line of a game of telephone.
It's no use trying to make friends with me.
After Thomas sees this, she informs him of the rumor he had accidentally created. Emily shows her bias towards diesel engines here. Neville looks different than the other Steamies, and he's square like a diesel.
So it didn't really take much to convince her that he was horrible.
She and Thomas were both shocked when Toby told them that Ari and Bert were terrible to Neville, and unfortunately we don't see a follow-up with her in this episode. And Emily knows best, she gets bored of waiting for her passengers, so she plays a game with Percy.
I'd like to be a queen.
Pretending to be a queen and telling him what to do. Queen Emily does like to be in charge after all. Her fatal flaw is shown here.
I always know what to do.
And because of this, we have a lovely moment of Toby being perfectly in character. Instead of minding her own business, Emily derailed 3 engines, dismembered at least 10 of the freight cars, and knocked down the telephone pole. She busted Toby's kneecaps. She gave him knee surgery.
Emily immediately admits that she's wrong and goes to Toby for help.
I don't know what to do. I don't know best. Emily, you must go and get help.
She goes to the next station for help, and the station master calls in the breakdown train. Side note, how did the station master call for help if the phone line was down? But she apologized for underestimating how difficult it is to know the right thing to do. And we see a major turning point in Emily's bossiness trait from here forward. This is her last relevant appearance of Season 9. Let's see what Season 10 has in store.
I always know what to do.
In Big Strong Henry, Emily participates in trying to cheer up Henry by suggesting he could pull 20 cars of coal. Which he probably could, right? She reassures him in the end that he is strong and helpful. Emily tends to be a source of emotional validation for her friends. Except for Gordon. That guy. He doesn't need it, he gives it to himself. In Emily and the Special Coaches, she sets off with the intent to pick up coaches for Gordon as a reward for him breaking his speed record. Diesel meets her at the water tower and listens to Emily discuss Gordon's record. This is their first direct interaction, and I have to point out, Diesel is not rude to her at all. When Diesel tries to share his record, Emily immediately says that there is nothing special about smelly old diesels, which infuriates him, so Diesel steals the coaches. How he got to them before Emily baffles me, but he did. I'm assuming that she just took a long time at the water tower or something. I don't know. Emily demands the coaches back once she finds him, and Diesel refuses unless she listens to him, which she also refuses. This is a fun little montage sequence, as Diesel uses the fact that Emily is still somewhat new against her. Eventually, she arrives at Maythwaite and tattles on Diesel to Sir Topham. When Sir Topham goes with her to try to find Diesel, they find him on the main line. She again insults Diesel to his face, then feels bad for him when she learns that he is special too. And even Diesel is an engine, so she cares about his well-being. Even though she doesn't like him. Or any Diesels. She still cares enough to convince Sir Topham to get him a new engine. This again confronts her biases towards Diesels. Emily's conscientiousness is what gets Diesel his first happy ending of the entire series.
Whoa!
In Thomas and the Treasure, Emily doesn't believe Salty's story about the treasure, specifically saying,
There's no such thing as treasure.
"That is so silly to me. This appearance is pointless," but I thought the line was hilarious. She appears in James the Second Best with Sir Topham, and actually I'm noticing a trend that a lot of Emily's appearances include Sir Topham. Many appearances that I don't include in this video are of Emily bringing Sir Topham to an accident or incident, so I'm wondering if this could be true. In Emily and the Garbage, she is introduced as a grand green engine who is proud of her big wheels and perfectly polished paint. This is yet another time she is introduced like James. Upon meeting Whiff, Emily is horrified.
Hello, Emily.
I'd be fucking horrified too. No one wants to work with a smelly guy that's enthusiastic about being smelly. She is clearly not a fan. She is then given a fair and speedy trial by a jury of her peers.
I'm the trash man!
It suits you.
And the jury members voted unanimously. Disgraceful. Disgusting. Despicable. She tries to escape him, but Whiff finds her easily in a chase sequence montage. And how does he know how to find her? Why does he know the rails so well? Eventually, Emily escapes from Whiff and comes across a furious Spencer. Then she has to move garbage cars that were somehow too heavy for her out of Spencer's way because some asshole left them across the junction blocking the main line. She knows she has to find Whiff again to help her because no one else will. She finds him, and it's definitely weird. No one acts like that after being ditched.
Let's go to work.
Then they move the trash together. She acknowledges the smell, but concedes that Whiff is very useful. Whiff is a great character. I really don't care what you say. In Thomas and the Lighthouse, she mentions the fireworks to Thomas, again being used as inspiration for Thomas's bad behavior. In Thomas Sets Sail, Thomas shows Emily the sailboat he is transporting, and she tells him that he looks grand. You know what? That's pretty nice of her. Also, I never noticed until the last time I rewatched the episode, but every character that Thomas meets along his journey is female. He meets Emily, Rosie, Elizabeth, and Molly. That's a nice way to be inclusive. It was so subtle that I never noticed it until now. In Season 12's Rosie's Carnival special, Rosie thinks she can handle the job that was meant for both her and Emily herself, and then she causes a ton of chaos.
I'm pulling the carnival special.
Eventually, Emily is a victim of this chaos as Rosie throws Ferris wheel seats at her face. Rosie cleans up her mess, and they make up at the end. In Excellent Emily, her last lead role in the model series, Sir Topham congratulated her for finishing her job by telling her that she was excellent, Emily. She is then told to take Trevor from Farmer McColl's to the airport. She lets the compliment get to her head, and ignores Murdoch's advice about flooded tracks. For some reason, she believes she doesn't need Harvey to clear the tree off of the tracks and pushes it out of the way, which nearly backfires. Buck tells her that Trevor is waiting for her, and she ignores his advice about mud. She gets stuck in the flooded tracks and starts to sink. Then she gets pulled out by Murdoch after admitting that she was wrong. Then she gets her job done by listening to everyone who is giving her warnings and safety advice, and tells Sir Topham that all of his engines are excellent. Something I've noticed about Emily is she really does not like being given unsolicited advice, but she had, for a long time, no issue giving unsolicited advice. Before moving into CGI, I just want to point out something that the Hit era always did right was machinery shots of Emily. Shots that remind you, this is a big machine. I love how this shot, you see her whole body, then you see her face. That big wheel is so beautiful. And Emily's extended running board almost makes it appear that she's seated on a throne like the queen she is. This is a truly magnificent piece of machinery, and I'm so happy that the show gave her model so much screen time. As we look forward into the Nitrogen era, most of Emily's appearances did little to develop her character, so I expect and hope that this part is much shorter. Starting with Hero of the Rails. Emily covers for Thomas on his branch line while he is helping Hero, and Spencer attempts to harass her for information and bully answers out of her. But she sticks to her guns and tells him that Thomas is busy. This is a great representation of Emily, being perfectly in character.
You're a big, strong engine, Spencer. Why don't you go and look?
Also a great representation of what it's like to be a woman in a male-dominated workplace. She doesn't let Spencer bully her, and she throws his shit right back at him in a way that he does not expect. In Season 13's Tickled Pink, Emily breaks down, and James takes Sir Topham Hatt's granddaughter and her friends to her birthday party. But he doesn't quite look like himself. Emily later sees him in the pink coat and laughs at him, which is kind of funny since she's the one who's broken down.
Cinders and ashes!
Emily is the first character besides Thomas to say cinders and ashes. That's kind of wild. I liked that she was the first to laugh at him for being pink, and she wasn't laughing at the color, she was laughing at James. Because James is so proud of his red paint that it really is funny when he doesn't look like himself. It's like seeing your hot coworker out of uniform and realizing that they're just average. But also, this is the undercoat, so James is literally rolling around the island in his fucking underwear.
He don't have underwear.
Why does James not have underwear? James is rolling around the island in his fucking underwear, which is a good reason to laugh at someone. In a blooming mess, Emily is told to collect flowers for the window boxes at Knapford. She's pretty excited about the flowers and says she knows all about them. She says hello to everyone she sees, and Mavis doesn't respond to her because she is too busy thinking about work. Emily thinks Mavis is sad, so she wants to cheer her up, and she decides to decorate the quarry with flowers, blocking paths and causing Edward and Thomas to crash into flatbeds and each other. This makes a huge mess, and Mavis is distraught when she sees it. Emily tells Mavis that she thought she was sad, then she fixes her mistake by cleaning up her mess. Mavis tells Emily she was busy thinking about work and tells her to take the flowers to the station where they belong. Emily tells Thomas and Edward about flowers when they are at the station, very enthusiastically. In Splish Splash Splosh, Emily is a victim of Thomas's antics, and her flower and her load is ruined. Nitrogen era, Emily is frequently used as a victim of Thomas, as well as motivation for his behaviors. And honestly, this goes for pretty much any character who is not in a lead role in a Nitrogen episode. In season 14's Pingy Pongy Pickup, Emily is assigned to take the uniforms for the soccer team to be washed. She is too busy talking about the soccer team to realize that she got stuck with a laundry job. She gets upset about the job not being the most important, and after creating messes for the other engines when she tries to do their jobs, she learns that the team has nothing to wear because she neglected her duties. Emily is creative in her solution. The uniforms would not have dried in time, so she had the laundry hung on her and used the wind to blow dry it. Oh my god, I am just now realizing, why is the only girl character doing the laundry? Emily had a couple of other appearances in season 14, but nothing noteworthy. Season 15 brought us this absolute sharp fest of an episode, Emily and Dash. In this episode, she is again introduced as a gleaming green engine who likes to do the best and be the best at everything she does. Emily thinks she can imitate the logging locos and their warbling whistles, which is completely dumb. She repeatedly has Dash show her the trick, and she doesn't care when he tells her that it uses a lot of fuel. She's very dismissive of his concerns, which is out of character for her. She makes a bunch of weird noises, and Dash runs out of fuel. Then she proceeds to leave him behind on the main line for some fucking reason. She is upset that she can't do the trick for the kids. Then she brings Dash to the party after leaving him stranded on the main line for a long time. Then she accidentally chirps like a bird, and the episode ends. I hate this episode. It's so dumb! Oh, hey look, Trevor's in the background. It's the only time that Emily appears to have the Dr. Susie in affliction, but she must have a better immune system than the other engines because this is the only time it happens. Emily has other appearances in season 15, but they're all inconsequential dialogue or just cameos. Wow, way to disrespect Emily this season. Is season 16 any better for her? In Thomas and the Garbage Train, Thomas is Whip's back engine for the garbage train. Diesel makes fun of Thomas for being stinky. Gordon says they are both smelly. And then Emily makes fun of Thomas for being stinky but says nothing to Whiff, even though she passes Whiff first. I love that Emily goes straight for Thomas, saying nothing to Whiff, silently acknowledging their first meeting.
I'm the trash man!
She isn't given a job in Emily's winter party special, and then Sir Topham Hatt's hat is blown away in the wind. She is convinced that she will be the engine to pull the party train, even though she hasn't done anything. At least she doesn't say stupid rhymes, though, although she does occasionally have alliteration. She goes to get decorated as the present train party engine before she finds the hat, or does any work for that matter. She finds Sir Topham's hat on a snowman at the end of the episode after getting yelled at for being stupid, honestly. She was really dumb in this episode. This episode is awful, but it's her only lead of the season, so I had to mention it. In Muddy Matters, Emily meets James at the station and congratulates him for his job and for getting his photo taken. Emily always gives genuine congratulations, even if she's jealous. So, in answer to the question, is season 16 better for Emily? No. Emily's appearances in the Nitrogen era seem to be inconsequential to her character development, as she is mostly used to make fun of someone or as motivation for another character's behavior. She has no significant role in Misty Island Rescue, Day of the Diesels, or Blue Mountain Mystery. We don't see any of the bossiness from the hit era, and by the time we enter the Brenner era, that know-it-all vibe that she had before completely melted away. Emily is no longer a know-it-all. Now, she knows it all. Big difference. In King of the Railway, Emily's main role is helping Henry get to the steamworks so she can also see Stephen. It is nice to see the consistency of her helping him when he needs it. Of course she wants to see Stephen. His design is a huge inspiration for hers. I don't think we ever see another single-wheel drive engine in the series, so that's kind of cool. In Wayward Winston, Emily and Gordon see Winston pass them at the station, and she comments that he has no driver. Why can't Sir Topham drive a stick shift, though? It is really not difficult. I taught myself how to drive a stick by humming! In the episode No Snow for Thomas, everyone must wear snowplows, and Thomas told his driver that his didn't fit right and convinced his crew to remove it, somehow, then told everyone else he couldn't find it. Emily had to plow Thomas's branch line. She heard kids laughing and thought they were laughing at her because she looked silly with her plow, but then she realized they were laughing because they were playing and having fun in the snow. Also, this kid's not wearing gloves. Emily starts having fun clearing the tracks, finishes quickly, and then is rewarded by running Thomas's branch line for the day. Then she makes fun of him for being stuck in the shed. Emily later finds Thomas stuck in the snow, and he is happy to see her. Sir Topham scolds him. Emily brings him his plow and digs him out of the snow. Then she shows Thomas the field full of snowmen, which he absolutely does not deserve to see, which shows that Emily cares more about being nice than she cares about being fair. Her appearance in the missing Christmas decorations was to help recreate the chase scene from the Day of the Diesels.
In the movie Tale of the Brave,
Emily asks James why he is teasing Percy, and is the first to rip on him for crashing the flying kipper and thinking he saw a monster. She makes fun of him for Gator scaring him. And to me, this is a really, really subtle nod to Blacklock.
Gator may have a sloping water tank, James, but that's nothing to be frightened of.
Emily is also the only one to tell the other engines to stop teasing Percy, while Edward and Henry reassure him that monsters aren't real.
Stop it. That's enough.
Tell them, Thomas.
Also, she tells Percy that maybe he was just dreaming, because she is trying to rationalize what Percy saw. Emily is also the one who informs Percy that Gator is leaving at the end of the movie. In season 18's Old Reliable Edward, Emily teases Gordon for getting stuck on the hill, as she should. In the Flatbeds of Fear, Emily is the only one other than Frankie who doesn't believe Salty's story, although it's kind of funny just how much this story gets to Thomas. Emily is sure there's a sensible explanation for the sound Thomas heard. The sound of the wind rushing through the pipes scares Henry so much that he pulls over and refuses to move, and Emily is called to deliver the pipes instead. When she hears the sound, her first guess was Thomas playing a trick. Or maybe she was hearing Henry. When she couldn't think of another explanation for the sound, she ran so fast that she spilled some of the pipes at a turn. That night, she still couldn't rationalize the sound to herself, and she admitted to Thomas that the Flatbeds of Fear must be real. She was actually scared, and she felt silly for it when Thomas told her it was just the wind going through the pipes.
I don't know, as a woman, I'm not about to admit to a whole bunch of men that I'm scared of something. Like, that's a terrible idea.
In Duck and the Slip Coaches, Emily doesn't have a spot at the sheds 2 nights in a row because Duck comes to help out. Duck took her spot for both nights, and not only was he an OG character, but also an OG Tidmouth resident long ago, before she ever came.
The thought of being left out for being a girl likely crossed her mind here, even though she knew it wasn't the case.
In Last Train for Christmas, Emily is doing her best to clear the line, and eventually gives up because she isn't progressing and is getting stuck. And then she says this.
Diesel was right.
She would have never admitted this 10 seasons ago. In Emily Saves the World, after she hears Duncan and Rheneas talking about their cool deliveries, which she doesn't know that they both failed to do, and when she finds out that Gordon has pulled the Queen, she starts to feel inferior. Emily feels insecure about her place on the railway, as the most interesting job she's ever had since coming to Sodor was the team uniforms. Thomas tells her about the jet engine incident, and she leaves feeling sad. The next day, she gets to take the giant globe to the animal park. She's very excited about this delivery and wants to show her friends, but she can't find anyone. The globe comes loose, and we have a nice little montage of the globe being chased after it falls onto Hero's train, hits a signal box at a junction, rolls down the line a la Boulder, and when it finally comes to a stop, James hits it head on. Then it follows Thomas. I think this shot right here is foreshadowing for the disaster yet to come in a couple of seasons. After the globe reaches the docks and falls into the water, Captain saves it, and Cranky puts it back on the flatbed. Anyone ever notice that Emily's episodes often end with her and Thomas discussing what happened during the episode? Emily has shown immense growth in character by this point, and even though it became obvious in the Nitrogen era that the writers just didn't know what to do with her, finding the insecurities that started to pop up around season 18 helps to explain some of her behaviors in the prior seasons.
A lot of her behaviors could be motivated by the same feelings that she's having now, but because she's being more outwardly expressive about them, she's less likely to be explosive about them.
She isn't as easily irritable now, so this must be working for her.
She's coping a lot better now.
In season 19's The Truth About Toby, Emily brings Henrietta to Toby after the rumors about him being scrapped start, and she gives Toby some of her coal. And Henry spots trouble. Emily tells Henry that engines can't get chickenpox and that he worries too much. In Snow Place Like Home, Emily has been waiting 3 days in the steamworks because the snow delayed the delivery of her piston rods. In Best Engine Ever, Emily is insecure about Caitlin being better than her. She breaks down on the main line, and Caitlin has to stop in the middle of her race with Connor because of it. She asks Caitlin to push her out of the way, but Caitlin doesn't have buffers, so she can't, and she leaves Emily on the main line, comes back, and pulls her to the steamworks. Emily is slightly offended that Caitlin mentions she is heavier than her coaches. I don't know why that's funny to me. Emily loves how fast she goes. She's impressed, and she feels a little insecure about herself, wanting to change her shape. You know, typical female insecurities. Caitlin and Victor both reassure her that she's fine the way she is, but she still feels sad about it. All the other engines could tell that she was unhappy. Even Gordon seemed concerned. James offers her a position as his back engine for his coastal run the next day, which Gordon laughs at. I don't see Emily's feelings here as her being worried or anxious or anything like that. She's sad. This is sadness. She is sad about her life being boring. She sees all her friends, who are male by the way, get to do the really cool jobs. Then she is rescued by Caitlin, and this forces her to think about how she is an obsolete design. When Caitlin's brakes fail on the hill, Emily saves her from a much worse accident by slowing her down. The cinematography in this scene it's really scary. This is actually freaking scary. And this is when she learns that Caitlin has insecurities too, as well as being called Caitlin's hero. This was a strong female lead episode and subtle because they used existing female characters together, so it feels natural and not like forced inclusivity or token diversity. Honestly, this episode hits me in the feels pretty hard sometimes, because I have a hard time with female friendships. In Diesel's Ghostly Christmas, Emily helps Thomas get his jobs done so he can help Sir Topham. Then she helps play the Christmas Carol trick on Diesel. I like her role in the trick and how she's up on the hoist. It's pretty fun. In Goodbye Sir Topham Hatt, Percy thinks that Sir Topham is leaving, and the engines are all upset. Edward says he will miss him, and Gordon agrees, even though he gets rather cross with them. Emily points out that Sir Topham always had a good reason to be upset with them when he is.
He usually has a good reason to get cross. One way or another, we're always causing confusion and delay.
Percy informs them that they have removed everything from the office, including the telephone, so Thomas suggests striking. And they do. Seeing everyone united like this is really nice. It's something that the Nitrogen era did really nicely. All the Tidmouth residents feel like a big family, and we can really feel that here. In The Great Race, Emily participates in the Best Decorated Engine competition, and she looks really pretty. In the scene where she tells Thomas she's being repainted for the Great Railway Show, she's interrupted by James, who has the same news. At the show, she tells Thomas how to do the shunting competition, and that's pretty much her whole role in the movie. In the last scene, during the reprise of You Can Only Be You, she and James swap back to their normal livery when crossing the Vickerstown Bridge.
I also want to point out that Emily was highly receptive of Ashima, and she commented on how great she was when she saw Thomas.
In Diesel and the Ducklings, Diesel calls her Little Lady Longfunnel, which is, yeah, that's fucking weird. He also teases her about not being strong enough for her train. She tells him to stop being horrid. Then he starts behaving because Thomas quacks him, and Emily is so shocked that his behavior took a full 180 that she asks what is wrong with him. I love this episode for so many reasons that I will probably do a full video on it at some point, which you will be more likely to see if you hit the subscribe button. Please? In Pouty James, she teases James about his attitude by pointing out that his face is always grumpy, and agrees with Sir Topham. She also told him just to apologize, and Henry, Gordon, and Thomas make pouty faces at him. James actually takes Emily's advice and apologizes to Sir Topham for his attitude, but he hasn't figured out how to actually change it yet. After Sir Topham confronts him again at the docks, Cranky points out his grouchy face, and Thomas teases him. Then Emily makes faces to Thomas and Porter. I noticed on this last rewatch that James only starts to smile at the faces being made at him when Emily joins in, and only again when Emily does it later in the episode. In Henry in the Dark, Henry is painted with glow-in-the-dark paint instead of his regular green. After Henry scared Thomas, James, and Gordon, everyone at the sheds was worried. When Henry is going to tell the other engines that he is the ghost train, Emily is the only one who asks Henry what he is going to say after he goes back into the shed after being interrupted and teased by James and Gordon. Everyone else essentially ignored him, and she was genuinely interested in what Henry had to say. She also says that Henry is brave to everyone while he isn't there to hear it. It shows how highly she thinks of him. In Engine of the Future, Emily protests that she doesn't want to be replaced. She loves working on the railway. And Edward's line cracks me up.
It's the only thing I know how to do.
I can understand both of their protests because both Emily and Edward have been replaced before. In Hugo and the Airship, Emily asks how Hugo could have been flying because he's much too heavy to fly. Again, applying logic when no one else seems to be. When she sees the Zeppelin, she comments that it is quieter than the helicopter or an airplane. I really thought that Emily appeared more notably in Season 20, but I was wrong. Season 21's Dowager Hat's Busy Day is a fun episode. Emily comments on Sir Topham's cold being nasty, and his mother takes his job for the day and causes absolute chaos. Emily works at Thomas's branch line for the day. After the chaos gets to be so much that nothing gets done, Emily confronts and tells off Dowager Hat for not running the railway properly and explains that everyone has a specific purpose. Emily learned when it is appropriate to step in, and she is the only character ever to confront Dowager Hat, who Sir Topham is literally afraid of. This episode shows that Dowager Hat may have started developing cognitive issues due to old age. Between her not being able to remember names of characters that she has already known for a long time, and then having them run on asinine errands, like, she should know better than this. Something is obviously going on with her. In Stuck in Gear, Emily is stuck because a tree fell across the line and she cheers Harvey on for pulling the branch out of the way. And this also shows that she learned from the last time she tried to move a tree branch. In The Fastest Red Engine on Sodor, she is annoyed with James when he comes into Knapford and tries to flirt with her.
Hey, Emily.
Hello, James.
Then she agrees with Sir Topham when he says that he needs to quit showing off. And she tells him that braking sharply can be really bad for his brakes. Thomas mentions his accident with his wooden brake blocks, and he is embarrassed. But it almost seems as though Emily maybe didn't know about that accident, because James isn't looking at Thomas when he responds, he's looking at Emily. like he's explaining himself to her rather than being defensive against Thomas. We all know what James ends up doing in this episode, though. In Emily in the Middle, she works with Donald and Douglas for the first time. She is sure she will be fine getting along with them, which she was. I think this is the only time there is even a mention that gender exists in the series because Donald calls Emily the lassie. She got along with each of them just fine, almost too well. Emily's laugh seems to be what drives the two of them crazy because both of them think that they're talking shit about each other to her, which is really funny. When they stop to fight on Gordon's Hill, Emily can't hold the train herself. Then she gets taken out by a giant snowball, which... This is actually the worst accident Emily has ever had, and I think her only derailment in the entire series. I really like this bird's eye shot because this is bad. Like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to her. Emily is furious and yells at them for being silly. This is the first angry outburst we've seen from Emily in years. Also, this is one of the few accidents where they don't say the line. She ends up heading the train and making them her back engine. Let's power through the wubba bullshit. Despite trying to be more gender balanced and inclusive, the writers appear to have forgotten that Emily existed in season 22. She's there, just not much. In season 23, Rangers of the Rails, Emily again seems disappointed with her life. Emily takes the Sodor Ranges to Callan Castle for Mia. She hits bumpy tracks in a flooded area, and then the track is blocked by a tree, which she tries to move herself, which this leads to her getting derailed. I thought she had learned her lesson, but wobble logic. The Rangers and Nia pull her back onto the line the next day after they camped out all night. In season 24 is Emily's best friend. She watches everyone pair off to work together and thinks she doesn't have a best friend. She asks Philip and Marion to be her best friends. Sees James laughing with Nia and feels jealous, which makes sense because James is actually her best friend. She tells Henry he is her best friend, which makes sense too because she cares about him a lot. She has a cute fantasy sequence with Edward as her best friend, and then a horribly awkward moment with Philip, Marion, Henry, and Edward are all together. Then she realizes she forgot to do her delivery and goes to the sand sculpture unveiling. She worries it won't be there, but Thomas has taken care of her delivery. Yeah, a sand sculpture. On an island that frequently gets storms. Stupid. It's just gonna blow away! In Emily to the Rescue, Sodor has an emergency drill. She hears the emergency siren and assumes she is closest, so she heads to get Rocky. Emily makes sure to follow the signals and safety rules as Percy runs past her, and he ends up causing a very weird accident by ignoring the signals. Like, come on, this is something you would do with your toys, and you know it. It's just weird. Emily then tells Sir Topham that she will go get Rocky and to meet her at the accident site, showing that she can think quickly in case of an emergency, and she does know the right thing to do. This shows quite a bit of growth since Emily knows best. She pulls Rocky under the crumbling bridge as Gordon is unable to move backwards. She is rewarded with being the dedicated emergency response engine and is finally given a number after being a main character for nearly 2 decades. In Emily's final appearance of the series, the episode Gordon and Rebecca Coming Through, Emily is nearly hit by Gordon as he rushes through with the express, and she nearly hits Diesel. And she is also missing the number that she was just given. Now that we have made it through all of Emily's appearances that matter, this next section will be dedicated to significant relationships between Emily and other characters. Starting with Thomas. She and Thomas are often paired together. They are both impatient. They both hate being late, and they annoy each other. And, like Thomas and James, they bring out the absolute worst of each other. Emily and Thomas don't get along at first. Emily seems to find him to be beneath her, and Thomas finds her to be an annoying, bossy bitch. But it doesn't take long for them to warm up to each other. From a writer's perspective, pairing Emily with the main character is a great way to establish her as a new main character, and she's frequently used throughout the series as motivation for Thomas's bad behavior. Also, she seems to be able to get under his skin in a way that the others can't, which is kind of funny. Emily and Henry have a wholesome relationship. In King of the Railway, Henry's safety valve fails, and he gets it fixed but still has issues the next day, so Emily offers to take Henry back to the steamworks so she can sneak a peek at Stephen. It was a sweet callback to her first interaction with him when his tubes were leaking in season 7, and it shows that she still cares for Henry, and also Emily and Henry both seem to like nature a lot. Henry likes trees, Emily likes flowers. I know this is controversial, but the similarities between Emily and Rebecca must be addressed. In Confusion Without Delay, Emily greets Rebecca, and that's her entire appearance for the episode, but I want to discuss this episode because Rebecca's arc is very similar to Emily's in the episode As Good as Gordon. Rebecca learns that all the engines are special and famous and have done incredible things, and she believes that she doesn't belong there unless she can be outstanding too. So Rebecca tries to be extra fast, causing a bunch of people to miss the express. This stems from her feelings of potential inadequacy. A big criticism that the fandom has of Rebecca is that Gordon accepted her way too fast. But I think it makes perfect sense that he did because of this scene.
You look the same size to me. If anything, I think Gordon looks bigger.
Emily would never. Not because of her respect for the Flying Scotsman. We know she probably doesn't see him as all that important, considering that her siblings did his job before he was even a concept of an idea of a design. No, Emily would never defend Gordon from his brother because she knows that Gordon deserves to be teased by him. After all, Gordon does it to everyone else! And Gordon is thrilled because she did something that no one else on Sodor would. The first time Emily directly interacted with Diesel was in season 10. She was horrid to him for no reason. She immediately shamed him for being a Diesel when he was trying to engage in conversation. She feels bad for this transgression, talks to the right people to get him a new engine, and apologizes to Diesel for not listening. They have very little interaction with each other until season 20's Diesel and the Ducklings. In this episode, the dynamic has switched. Diesel is horrid to Emily because she's there, and his friends can see him. When he calls her names, it shocks her, and she's embarrassed and humiliated. The big difference in these interactions is that Diesel does this in front of the whole of Knapford Station, passengers, engines, and station crew. Emily was rude to Diesel in private with just the two of them at the water tower, giving her plausible deniability if Diesel chose to go to HR. When Thomas quacks him, Diesel immediately apologizes to Emily and compliments her in front of everyone for all the things that he was just making fun of her for. Their relationship is not strong, or even really important. But her behavior and attitude towards diesel engines has changed so much through the series to the point where they switch roles completely. The last significant relationship I want to talk about is Emily's relationship with James. A magazine bio said that Emily has a particular fondness for James and treats him as a little brother, which, yeah, I can see that. The dynamic between them is special and different from any other. James never teases Emily or ever says anything negative about her, as he does to everyone else. And no one teases James quite like Emily does.
I should be the one on the mainland.
Of course you should, James. Then you could be the one who got lost.
No one else would dare say that to him. And she would never say something like that to any of the others. And James just takes it too, never snapping back, never making fun of her, never asking to stop, and never even getting defensive. Their dynamic is friendly, but it borders on flirtatious. Emily and James are similar in a lot of ways. Both are proud of their looks and believe they are unique. They're both unique colors, with extended running boards. Also, James and Emily are the only engines to get jazzy songs in the classic series. They both believe that they are always right. But Emily apologizes when she realizes she is wrong, makes amends, and takes accountability for her actions. James, however, lets his pride get in the way and needs to be prompted to apologize. Emily and James bring out the best in each other, and I have never seen anyone talk about this. If anyone is Emily's best friend, it's James. James would never throw express coaches at her or blame her for his mistakes. But he will listen to her advice, even if it's unsolicited. Many people think that Emily is a blank slate of a character, unnecessary, boring, unoriginal, a bitch. They hate her for taking Duck's place. No one ever talks about the fact that she also kind of replaced Henry, but I don't want to talk about that right now. But as you can tell, if you've made it this far in the video, I think there is so much more to Emily than people give her credit for. She went from being a bossy know-it-all to being sensible and knowing. She is altruistic and conscientious. Those are fancy words for showing concern for the well-being of others and doing things for them because you can. She hates being late. She can be impatient. She tries her best to be rational, believing a reasonable explanation exists for anything. So what do you think? Is there anything you want to add? What do you like about Emily? What do you dislike about her? What else would you like to see? Who else would you like to see? Let me know what you loved. Let me know what you hated. Don't you dare hate any of it. I will cry like my toddler. I really can't decide if my psych professors would be proud or disappointed with these projects. Like, hell, I can't even decide if I'm proud or disappointed with these projects. Thousands of dollars for a psych degree, and I'm spending my time on character analysis videos. I love my life.